Good morning, Jade, and welcome to the Low Carb Paleo Show.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. Thank you for coming. And Mark, good morning. How are you?
Wonderful, as usual. No point being anything else.
No, besides, nobody would listen.
This is very true.
So, Jade, you are the co-founder of the Fat Fueled Mafia.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be part of that mafia in Austin, and you're also concerned about epilepsy issues, and we'll talk more about this pretty soon. Mm-hmm. Concerning your background, can you tell us your personal story?
Sure. I'll try to condense it. It's a long one. So basically, when I was 7.5, I had my first seizure, and I was diagnosed at 8 with epilepsy. They did a brain biopsy that determined I had a scar on the left temporal lobe of my brain, which was caused from the umbilical cord being wrapped around my neck at birth. And I've lived basically 31 years with epilepsy. And during that time, I started out doing medication as my form of treatment. And so over the first 28 years of my diagnosis, I was on anywhere from 2 to 3 meds. And I've been on a max of about 10 different types. And I've gone many times seizure-free for periods of time, but I struggled a lot with the side effects of the medication and the fact that the scar is on my temporal lobe and it affects certain behaviors and things like that. And then one of my latest medication changes made me really sick, and that was about 3 years ago. And I lost a ton of weight and got really, really unhealthy. And I decided that I would try the ketogenic diet. And basically that was 3 years ago. And the choice to do that, the only thing I wish I could have done was done it sooner. Yeah. Because today I'm seizure free. I'm still on some meds, but I've been titrating off actually every couple months, and it's been great. I mean, I work in the health and wellness field. I've been a massage therapist for 12 years. And now I help educate people about the ketogenic diet and its uses. And I also am a community health educator. So I spend a lot of time talking about self-care and connecting communities. And that's where the Fat Fuel Mafia came in. Social media is great, but I love connecting with people out in the world. And right. Community is huge for me. So that's a bit of my story. There's so much more to it, but that's basically the gist.
I can tell you're a personable person from our pre-interview talk. If I may, I would like to address the issue of the stigma around epilepsy. A lot of people are scared of it. A lot of people tend to. I've actually seen an attack happen to someone else in the middle of a restaurant, and the person that was with that person knew exactly what to do. Everybody else kind of like almost ran away. It was almost like some kind of a disease that people were afraid to catch. Can you address the issue of that?
Yeah. So probably, I don't know what kind of seizure you saw, but it's probably what most people think when they think of seizures and epilepsy, a convulsive seizure. But seizures come in all forms. But the stigma around it is that there's a huge factor, I think, with individuals when we're diagnosed. It becomes something you want to keep a secret because it's embarrassing. I've always been pretty open about it, but there have been times when I've decided to not share it because of how people react. It's, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, that must be awful. And it's tough, but I think in relation to stigma and the community and society, I think there's just not enough education on it. And the fact that epilepsy is such a broad term. There's so many different types of seizures and how it affects people that it's hard to really educate people well on it. But I think the more people that speak up about it, that actually live with it, the more we can bring it into the mainstream and into the light, and it becomes something acceptable like cancer.
Right.
You know, but if we're always in the dark about it and not wanting to share it, that's why there's a stigma.
Yeah.
So your mission is to educate people.
Yeah, my mission is to educate people about finding their own new normal, basically, or their own healing path, whatever it is, whether it is through food or medication or whatever it is. There's all different ways to do it, but I don't want anybody with a diagnosis just simply to give up and to accept that as the end. I just see a different beginning.
Yeah, no, I mean, I could see where you should not, if not be proud of it, but at least assume it and not being ashamed of it. What I was referring mostly was educating the other side, that is the people that are afraid of it.
Yeah.
Yes, I think, and I from my personal experience, I've dealt with different forms of discrimination around it or judgment, but not to the degree I've heard from some people. It's some of the things I have heard, I'm just completely floored, and it basically boils down, you're right, to education. And there are different organizations that could be doing more, and I work with different people who are doing really great things on social media trying to educate people, but I think it's just a really hard thing. We talk about how do you make epilepsy cool? So people want to know about it, right?
You know, the worst part of that event, in my case, was the fact I didn't know what to do. And that's probably one thing that you should, the same way as they have, the Red Cross is teaching how to resuscitate someone. Maybe you should have classes that shows how to handle an epilepsy attack. They do?
They do.
Okay.
They do. Basically, if you saw someone, what I hear you say is, I wish I'd known what I could do. Basically, if someone was having a convulsive seizure and they were laying on the ground, you'd want to roll them on their side, put like something underneath them, a pillow, a jacket, because if they're convulsing, they may hit their head. And also after the seizure, if it's a convulsive type seizure, the body will relax. And what happens is people think you swallow your tongue, but what happens is the tongue becomes relaxed and falls on the airway, making it hard to breathe. So basically, if you roll someone on their side, that allows the tongue to fall off to the side. It also allows the body, if you're drooling a lot, not choking on it, it'll drain out. If someone were to have a different seizure where they just look confused and they're wandering around, you just kind of follow them and guide them, and you make sure there's nothing in the way that could hurt them. That's basically the safety for epilepsy, if you saw that.
But if, following that reasoning, if you're a stranger and you don't know that person, and knowing how Americans are very aware of the safe space, how do you approach someone you don't know that is having an attack without being perceived as, I don't know, touching him or it's always very tricky. In some situation like this, when you don't know what to do and you're afraid to do something that could turn bad, how do we handle that?
I mean, when it comes to being safe space, I get that and respecting people's spaces. But if they're laying on the ground and convulsing, they can't respond. They can't tell you what they need. And really, you're just scared. They're scared. And yes, when someone comes out of a seizure, some people, depending on the types of seizures, because everything is different, but they may not even remember their own name and they will be scared. So just reassuring someone. Personally, I wouldn't worry so much about whether you're invading their space, because you're doing something to help them that they can't control.
Yeah.
and that they need help. And most people, I have always been thankful to the people that have helped me when I've had one, because your body just takes over and it does what it wants.
Yeah.
Right. But in the case of a light seizure where someone might just appear to, go away somewhere,
Phase out of it.
and you don't know that person, how do you, if you're not a personal friend or a companion or something, how does a stranger help someone in that case?
Well, if they're just having like a petite mal or just blanking out, if they're not hurting themselves, most people, sometimes you wouldn't even know they were having a seizure. But if you did, and if you saw someone and they looked, it doesn't matter if they're having a seizure or not, something seems off. Simply saying, "Are you okay?" is nice enough. You don't have to do anything. Is everything okay? If they say they're fine, then that's where you have to respect people's space.
Right. Okay. All right. Moving along. How did you discover the keto diet?
Actually, it was my little sister. I'd always known about it, but a lot of the research and studies over the years of growing up had pushed it for just simply pediatrics, not for adults.
Oh, right.
And I was on the phone with my sister one day, and this was when I was on this new medication, and I was crying, and she just said, "Well, why don't you look into the ketogenic diet?" So I did, and it was the best thing I ever did. So she was the one that led me to it, basically. And then I just kind of do what I did best, and that was educating and immersing myself into it and realizing it was more than just a diet. It literally was a life-changing experience.
Right, right. Thank you. For our listeners that are not familiar with this diet, can you give us the short version, explain it?
Yeah, so there are many different types of ketogenic diet and approaches, but for what I do, it's more of a therapeutic approach. So it's a low carb, high fat, moderate protein diet. So that's basically we use ketones or fat as our main fuel source, not glucose like the standard American diet.
Right.
I can elaborate more on that a little bit if you want, but that's basically the gist of it.
Yes, please. Please.
So a lot of research right now will show a lot of people doing it for weight loss, and they'll do different cheat days. But typically someone doing the ketogenic diet, most of their nutrition or percentage is 70 to 80% fat, and the rest is evened out with the carbs. There's also a modified Atkins approach that people for epilepsy use as well. So that's kind of...
Okay. So when you say high fat, can you, what kind of fats, and a typical daily intake would be what?
Yeah. Okay. So most mornings I will have coffee or tea with about a quarter cup of heavy cream in it. And I will add a tablespoon of MCT oil. And I blend that up. And I also like to put a scoop of vital proteins. They're collagen peptides. And so I get a little protein with that. Sometimes another good meal is a fatty cut of meat and vegetables cooked in either olive oil or butter. And then
fatty fish.
That would be my carbs. What?
Fatty fish as well, right?
Yeah, I'll do salmon sometimes. I mean, where I live right now, I'm not a big fan of we're not near the ocean, so I don't tend to.
Yeah, actually, Central Market just received fresh, never frozen salmon from Alaska.
Ooh.
Yeah, but it's not cheap. It's $60 a pound. $60 a pound.
No, I don't want it that bad. So I also eat a lot of avocados and to get my fats in. So that's kind of basically a meal, something small like a carb. Like my carbs are all from vegetables, and then a nice fatty cut of meat that goes with it. And usually I like to make dressings a lot, fatty based dressings. So I'll eat That's kind of
So
the
are you avoiding certain fruits, for example?
So when I first started doing keto, I still did about a quarter cup of blueberries or raspberries in my morning with some heavy cream. But now I don't even like fruit. I know that sounds like the saddest thing.
Well,
But the other day, my sister had a slice of strawberry, so I tasted it. And what's happened is it's changed my palate completely. So the fruit it's like 1,000 times sweeter.
Right. Now, I'm sure you're aware that even to this day, fat is 4-letter words.
Yeah.
So how, I mean, I see this all the time. I don't know if you know, but I'm also a nutritionist. I hear that all the time. All over, I explain what paleo diet, because I'm not on keto, but I'm paleo diet. And people are like, oh, you eat so much fat, and fat is bad for you. And I said, no, it's not. As long as it's like people, there's good people and bad people. There's good fats and bad fats. If you choose your fat correctly, it's actually good for you. But they won't allow it. They won't accept it. They just, for them, fat is just absolutely unacceptable. So how do you imagine there's a listener out there that is having trouble with epilepsy, and they were told all their life that fat is bad for them. How do you convince them that fat is good for them?
The best way is to share my story. But when I started, I actually was petrified I was going to get fat, because the saying goes, fat makes you fat, right? And I can only say, just try it. If that's your biggest fear, then just give it a few months and it kind of proves wrong. And the other thing is to simply say, it can be bad if you're taking in a ton of carbs on top of it. So if you're taking in a bunch of fat and a bunch of carbs, that's going to do a disservice to the body. It can't do both. So that's one thing I would say. If you're going to, I can't change how people, it only takes time. I would hand them books and research papers and talk from experience. But when it's been ingrained in us in this country that fat is evil, it's very hard to break something like that. And I think it takes your own personal journey and educating yourself to break that. So all I know is fat makes me function so much better, and my brain feels better, and I have seizure control, and it works. And I haven't gotten fat. So there you go in 3 years. Right.
Well, we're not seeing the bottom part of you, so we don't know yet.
That dude is an insult.
Oops, I did it again.
Oh my God.
Okay.
I can't take you anywhere, can I, Alain?
No.
Except twice. The second time to apologize. Yeah.
I'll pay you $50 if you take that one out.
No, leave it in. It's okay.
Okay. So to be, I'm trying to get serious again. To be more specific. No, you're not helping. Okay.
It's your fault, Mark.
Let's put our serious faces on. Okay. Yeah, put a tape over your. To be specific, because I guess we need to do that. Can you differentiate the good fats and the bad fats? Explain what the good fat is, what they are, and what the bad fats are.
Okay, so the one best thing I describe, because I am not a dietitian. What I do know is animal-based fats are healthier for us. It's the plant-based fats that we need to be concerned about, like sunflower oil, canola oil, those things. And I'm not, I can't give as much information. I'm not sure what you're looking for, other than that's what I tell people.
Let me help then. For me, because again, it's calling certain fats bad names is not helping. So making a blanket statement that vegetable fats are bad is also not entirely accurate, because avocado fat is good, olive oil is good, coconut is good.
It's good.
So all these are good fats, and then of course to add to that, grass-fed butter.
Yes.
Right, and even lard.
Yeah.
As long as it's coming from a clean source.
Exactly. Basically, if you were to break it down and make it simpler, is the less processed it is, the better it is.
Right.
At least that's how I lead or live my life and practice my keto. The cleaner it is and the less processed it is, that means fats, because I do plenty of coconut oil and plenty of olive oil, but I don't do anything that needs to be processed.
So extra virgin olive oil, certified organic as much as possible. Ghee is acceptable as well, also organic. On the dark side of thing, typically your highly processed vegetable oils, corn, soy, etc., are not good. Any kind of oil that comes in the plastic bottle automatically is a big no-no.
Yes.
And then of course the hydrogenated fats, the Crisco, and all these kind of those are unacceptable. They are being now proven to be bad for you. So that's what I was trying to explain, the difference between the good fats and the bad fats, because you can't make a blanket statement, say all fats are bad or all fats are good. You need to differentiate and explain to people, yes, everywhere in the world, there's good fats and bad fats, the same way as there's good people and bad people. So, and I think we're trying to let people know the difference, so they don't just go blindly into using bad fats and thinking it's good for them.
Right.
Okay. So, of course, the answer seems to be obvious because you already addressed it, but how has the keto diet improved your health?
Well, it's given me seizure control. It's allowed me to come off some of my medications so far. It's improved my cognitive thinking. It's balanced my weight, so that's been a nice thing too. People like hearing that. I don't feel the side effects that I had as much with the medications. I don't feel myself needing to sleep near as much. I have a lot more energy, and everything feels more consistent and even emotionally. And my response to things, I can process things better. I can multitask better. All of those things that I think were masked or I had trouble doing with the amount of medication I had on board with me. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another thing we should mention is that our brain is made out of about 70% fat.
Yes.
So the quality of the fat is very important for the quality of the connection in our brain. So another thing too that we forgot to mention is that typically omega-6 fatty acids are inflammatory, and we should focus more on omega-3 fatty acids, right?
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that. So you wrote an ebook, My Keto Toolkit, Begin Your Journey. Can you show us the cover?
Yeah, I can show you the cover. So this is the cover of the book, and basically it's covering all the tricks and tips I have kind of learned over my own journey, and answering a lot of the questions I get asked all the time, like how do I eat out with friends? What are good fats? What are the fats you like to eat? What do I grocery shop? It basically is a little packet of all the information to kind of get started, or also to learn some tricks to maybe add in to your own practice of keto or low carb. Okay.
And if people are interested, they can buy this book on your website? Is that right?
Yeah, you can actually go to my website at jadenelson.net and click on the shop button, or you can search just my name, Jade Nelson, on Amazon, and it will pop up. So that's where people can definitely get it.
And it's $200, right? for the
It's totally $200. No, $499.
It's worth at least $200, but you don't have to pay that much.
It's a life experience of $200.
But the today's special is $499.
Yes, today's special is $499.
Okay, only for people listening to the show.
Hey, that's four that I didn't have looking at my book before.
Oh, we've got one extra.
About your service, I understand you also help clients, guide them, counsel them. What kind of services do you offer?
So I do offer massage therapy here in Austin, and I also do a lot of online stuff where I do what are like guru sessions, I call them. It's when people can they get 30 minutes of my time to ask me anything revolving around their health or wellness, specifically sometimes to epilepsy and keto. It's just kind of answering questions. I also do some coaching type sessions where I help people. Basically, what I'm good at is helping people build healthcare plans, right, or build a way to fit making lifestyle changes into their life easy where it's not difficult. So I do a lot of talking about self-care, and nutrition is a small piece of it, but it's also a part of it. And we talk about self-care, wellness, how to fit in stuff so it works into your life. So I do a few of those different types of services with people. So
you use like Skype or something like this?
Yeah, I do. I use Skype, or we just do phone call, whatever's convenient for people. So I do that kind of stuff, and I can build them up a plan and provide them with the information to basically start them on their own journey, because I'm very big on empowering people to take responsibility of their own health, not for someone to do it for you, but to show you and guide you. I even do locally, I will go to people's homes and basically teach them how to cook keto, but also teach them how to make it, to do keto prep or organize it. So sticking to the diet or the lifestyle they choose, whether it is a paleo or not, it makes it easier, how to do it easily. So it's not this thing you're really having to fight to force into your life. So.
Okay, I'll sign up for a class.
Awesome. I'll come cook with you.
How much you charge to come to people's house to?
So I usually do about $45 an hour. We cook together, and it's a very much a teaching session with people. I can cook for people, but I really want to empower them to want to do it themselves.
Yes, right. So. And that's something we should address too, which we've done in the past shows as well, is that we need to encourage people to take over or to take control of their own health and stop giving it away to the doctors and, that could barely spend 10 minutes with you looking at the clipboard, or now it's a tablet. And then, we need to regain control of our own health. We need to be aware of our health issues. We need to stand up to the doctor and say, no, that doesn't feel right, or, do you have an alternative? It's just a few weeks ago, and an example of that, I was tested for potential melanoma on my leg, and it turned out to be negative, but they wanted to put on my, because they took a slice basically of skin. They want to put some petroleum jelly on top of it, and I say, no, that is not acceptable. I will not put petrol on my skin. It's poisonous. So what, and he stopped in his tracks. He was like, no, I just don't want that stuff on my skin. And I asked him what are the alternatives, and we finally agreed that olive oil was acceptable. As a way to keep the wound moist but healing at the same time. So that's something that I know we have been trained, unfortunately, to see the doctors as gods. And they do have the knowledge, but they don't know you. They don't know your particular case, and who better than yourself know about yourself. A lot of people I've heard a lot of comments about, especially women, that complain that the doctors are talking down to them because they're the doctor, and it must be in your head, right? kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
which in your case is true.
Is that a good enough laugh? Yeah, it's in my head.
I'm sorry.
No, you know what? You need to stop saying sorry because you keep doing it.
Yeah, you don't mean sorry, Alan, really.
No, you don't.
It's my wicked sense of humor, I guess. Twisted, wicked,
Yep.
whatever.
Wicked, twisted, yep.
Yeah,
You know,
twisted.
and when you're talking about that with doctors, and that's another thing I will lead workshops or talk to people about is your doctor is a tool. You know, they do have more knowledge and stuff, but the reality is that you need to, Mark, are you laughing? You know what? Are you not taking me serious because I'm a woman?
No,
Yeah.
Right,
it's one of those translation problems.
Anyway, but really, doctors are a tool, and I think I talk to a lot of different people, and I tell them, take the information in, but then also be responsible to go learn about it as well, you know, and try to empower yourself. That's what I talk a lot about when I'm speaking. I talk about being hopeful when you get a diagnosis, empower yourself with it, and educate yourself about it. Don't just sit there and wait for someone to, quote unquote, fix you, because you'll be waiting a long time.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. No, you look scary now.
I can be if I need
Mary,
to be.
Mark, you better be careful now. You're in trouble.
Honestly, I'm having a blast. I haven't had this much fun.
I'm always in trouble, mate.
That makes the two of us. So what was it off the record? What was that?
But we'll come to that afterwards.
Okay. All right. Going back to serious business.
Okay.
Speaking engagements, you did mention that you're going to have a couple of talks coming up soon. Can you expound on that?
I'm speaking at Dell Children's Center to parents on the 12th of June next week about raising a child with epilepsy. And then I'm also speaking at KetoCon on the 17th. So KetoCon's the 15th to the 17th here in Austin next week. So that's June. And I will be speaking on the topic of healing in the kitchen. So I'll be talking about my process of how I basically healed by food. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of July, there's Low Carb USA in San Diego. And I'll be speaking there in a breakout session where I talk about how I took my struggle of my diagnosis and turned it into an empowerment and how it became my passion.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
That's great. You're famous.
I wouldn't say that.
That's okay.
But it is pretty awesome. It feels real great to be able to take something that was so hard and turn it into something so positive.
No, we can absolutely tell you're passionate about that subject, and you should. I mean, it's your story, and it's important to get it around. So hopefully the show will help with that.
Yeah, definitely.
So my last question,
okay,
before Mark, hard-hitting questions. Where can we find information about your services and your? By the way, I would like to attend the Dell talk because I'm always open to learning more.
Okay.
Is that an open session or is that only for parents?
I'm not sure. I could check into that. I mean, definitely get back on you with that.
Okay. Yeah, I would be very curious to hear what you have to say on that subject, actually.
Okay. So people can find me at jadenelson.net. That's my website. And then you can find me also on Instagram and Facebook, and it's at The Train Inside Me is my my handle on both of those. So people can find me there.
Do you have handles?
Handles.
Oh,
well, that's what people call
handles.
them. You know, that's what the young people call them.
The handles, yeah. Young people, yeah. You're such an old lady.
Oh, I'm not talking about you, not me.
Ooh, I see. Well,
That's
I
how
have
we play.
handles. I have handles,
Okay.
but we'll stay clean. This is a family show.
Okay, it's a family show.
All right. So, Mark?
Yeah, I'm going to start with something very difficult. Where did the fat-fueled mafia get its name from? Apart from being fat-fueled, of course.
Okay. It's my friend Jennifer and I created it. We found each other on social media. We met at a coffee house, and she wasn't crazy and she didn't think I was crazy. And then we just randomly came up with that name. She's the one that was like, how about because I kept saying mafia and different things. She's like, how about the fat fueled mafia? And that's how we came up with it. It was pretty simple. And everybody seems to love it, and everybody laughs when they,
it's a memorable name, isn't it? Let's face it.
And I on Instagram, there's the Fat Fuel Mafia is our group, and we post whatever we're doing and activities we're doing here in Austin. So, yeah.
Super job. I'm trying to read my own writing here. It's the trouble when you write while you're giggling to yourself. You said earlier you also recommend a modified Atkins approach to a diet. How does that differ from, let's say,
that typically allows people more carbohydrates than a keto, because a typical keto diet is about 20 grams of carbohydrates. Some people less than that, but with a modified Atkins one, it's sometimes 30 to 50 grams of carbohydrates. And also they allow different foods. Like I've seen people on modified Atkins eat beans and different things like that, but people on keto don't eat. Yeah. So there are different carbohydrates that are allowed, basically. And the fat intake is a little less. So.
Okay, that's fairly clear, I think.
You shouldn't eat beans if you don't want to affect the atmosphere.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
I don't eat beans, so I don't have that problem.
No, we don't want to contribute to global warming.
Or just the simple fact of clearing a room is pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, this is very true.
That could be helpful, actually, in some cases.
It could be. It could be. Next question, Mark.
Back to the sort of the subject in hand. You said earlier when you switched to the keto diet that your what you ate drastically changed. Did you find also that the quantity of food that you ate also went down? Yeah,
it definitely did. I was still cooking like I was eating a lot, so there was all this food always left over. I went from eating 4 and 5 times a day to twice, not feeling hungry half the time. In the beginning, I felt starving a lot, and it took a while to figure things out. But yeah, the quantity went down, and that means the grocery bill went down.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah. And that's something a lot of people say, sort of the paleo diet, the low carb diet is so expensive because it's got lots of meat in it, but it's not true, is it really?
It's not true. It only becomes expensive when you start buying all of those products. I mean, products have their purpose, and I have things I like to use personally, but when you're buying everything because it says paleo or because it says keto, that can get expensive. So, yeah.
But just natural ingredients, bought as raw as possible, as clean as possible. They're not expensive.
Definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
That's very true. Very true. And the other thing I just want to sort of come at is that getting fatty meats can sometimes be a bit of a problem.
Yes, it can.
How have you overcome that?
I actually have. I'm in Texas, and it's beef country, and and I actually buy about 30 pounds of meat every, 6-7 months, and I get to pick exactly what cuts I want, and so that's been great. So I pick all of the fattiest cuts of meat, basically. Or if I can't do that and I'm eating other things that aren't beef. I eat a lot of pork belly, and I buy that in huge flats at Costco. And then if I do chicken, which is very rare, it has the skin on it.
Right.
Yeah, that's how I do it.
As long as all of the sources are clean, that's the problem. Personally, I love bison, but bison has less fat content.
It does.
Than the average beef. But on the other hand, if you compare a typical grass-fed beef compared to commercial, like industrial beef, which is fed with genetically engineered corn and soy and so on and so forth, they are fattier, but the quality of the fat is bad for you. It's omega-6 and it's genetically engineered. So you need to avoid that.
Yeah, and that's why where I get my meat, it's all from grass-fed cows here in Texas. And sometimes we can't always get everything. That's the tough thing, but I tell people, do the best that you can.
Right. Can you share the name of that supplier, or is it a secret you want to keep to yourself?
I think it's called the Odom Beef Girls. They're on ODEM, I believe it is. They're on social media. I met them at a networking event, and they actually didn't always supply beef, but they did it they started doing it, so it's been great. But I don't know if you do show note links or anything.
Yeah, we can put that in the links. Yeah,
I can get that for you guys, so people have that.
That would be ideal. Super jobby. So obviously having moved over to a keto diet, it's changed your life. How would you suggest that anybody who wants to try it gets into it? What would be the easy steps for them to start moving into doing a keto type of diet?
Well, I always encourage people to read Keto Clarity. It actually is a really great book by Jimmy Moore. That was the first one I read. But if they were to simply just start making simple changes, I tell people to shop on the outside of the grocery store, stop buying anything packaged, and start reading the ingredients on the back of everything and start limiting your sugar. So I tell people to stick to meats and vegetables. And then I give them I tell them a list of healthier fats to add to it: olive oil, butter, swap out your milk for cream, things like that. Yeah. So simple, small changes. I tell people try not to go like crazy and jump into it, but just start making the simple changes, because if we make smaller changes, we're more able to stick to them. So
right,
this is very true.
The problem
or
is,
you can get my ebook too.
Well, I was gonna say that, which is typically when you tell that to people, they freak out. It's like they don't know where to start, and also they don't know how to cook it. They say, oh, that sounds like too complicated. So does your book come with recipes?
Yes, it does. Okay. It has some of my favorite recipes. It comes with how I stock my pantry, so they know what to buy. So that's in there too, those kind of things.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
So what's your website again, so we can make sure that people can get to it?
It's jadenelson.net. So that'll have everything that anybody wants to know right there.
Excellent.
Hopefully not too much.
It's not too overwhelming. You just like to pick on people.
He does.
I'm a teaser.
You are.
I'm not a taser. I'm a teaser.
Oh, all right. Well.
I know it's a bad one.
That was a really bad dad joke. That was a bad dad joke.
That's what my son calls Papa's jokes.
Yeah.
Bad puns and things.
Then you would get along with my husband very well.
Yeah. There's something in you that brings out the worst in me.
Oh, great! I bring out the worst in you.
The worst punster.
The worst puns, yes. Okay.
All right.
Anyway, I think we better do the close, Alain, while you can,
Well, I'm still alive.
Well, you're still alive, yes.
Well, if I could actually reach through this, it might be a different story.
Yeah.
Remember, Jade is local.
I am.
Well, she doesn't. Well, she almost does know where I live, but
yeah.
I know you didn't want to tell me.
Yeah. It's a secret. I don't want you to stalk me. Okay. Moving along. Want to add anything? Was there anything else we forgot to address?
Not on my end. I just want everybody to know that you have the power to heal yourself.
Good.
Excellent stuff.
On that, we'll close. And thank you again, Jade, for being on the Low Carb Paleo show. And as we say in Texas, à votre santé, y'all.
You hear that everywhere in Texas, don't you, Jade?
No.
No. It's a Texas French thing.
Well, then enlighten me, because I was like, when you said that, I was like, I have no idea what he's talking about.
Yes.
But I'm not a Texan.
À votre santé is French.
Mm-hmm.
It says to your health. It means to your health.
Ah.
And
right.
y'all is the Texas thing.
Yeah, y'all is a Texas.
Y'all. Yeah. So being a Texas French, because technically